Vanessa, we are so great to have you here. She arrived at the parking lot, and President Holland came out and gave her a nice tour of the stained glass windows, and that was pretty cool, wasn't it? And we kind of go back a little bit. So one of the first businesses I started was with Lisa Burnson in the scrapbooking industry called Creating Keepsakes Magazine, and that was back in the late 1990s. And as that industry evolved, back then there were no digital cameras. It was all photographs and what do you do with them and how do you tell the story. It has been amazing for me to see how that industry has changed. We thought it was pretty cool. Back then they figured there was about 47 million pictures a day that were being taken on regular photograph paper kind of stuff. We thought, wow, that's pretty cool. A lot of opportunity. I don't know what it is today with the digital camera, but it's got to be several billions a day of pictures that are being taken. And Vanessa has really, and her husband and the business has really figured out, okay, what's the solution to all those pictures? What can you do? They're not going to stay on your phone. You're always upgrading your phone. You never know what's going to happen. So I'm just excited to have Vanessa here and tell about, here's a non-tech company really, but uses a lot of technology that is solving a practical problem that all of us have if we're taking photographs. So Vanessa, it's all yours.
All right. Get myself turned on here. Okay, is the mic on? Can you guys hear me? I have a little slideshow. I sent it to Megan. She got it queued up and ready to go. Yes, that's me, Vanessa Quigley, founder of a tech startup. That is not something I ever thought that I would say, but I am so happy to be here with you guys. You know, sometimes I forget that I'm a 40-something-year-old woman, and I think I'm a college student too, but now that I'm looking out at you guys, I'm realizing that you look more like my children than my husband and I do right now. But I am so grateful to be here. I'm going to be speaking today about the role of a founder, and quickly I just want to take a quick poll. How many of you in the audience here have been a founder or are a founder today? That is impressive. Oh my goodness. Okay, now let's see if we add how many of you have ever started something, like anything, like a blog or a club or a big project. Raise your hands. All right, you guys are my people. You're creators. I'm a creator, and I believe that every one of us has a seed within us, a desire, a need to create. Some of us might not know it, but there's so much joy that comes from creating. And my whole life, ever since I was a little girl, I've been about creating. How do I advance the slides? Is there I don't know, I don't do these very often. How do I advance the slide? I want to get to this next slide. I think you're going to like it. Oh, there we go. Okay. But I never thought in a million years I'd be creating a business. I was more about creating art. And when I was your age, I was studying to be an opera singer. I was a student at BYU, and I was studying vocal performance and pedagogy, which means I was learning all about vocal technique and performance techniques and conducting techniques and staging techniques. And then the pedagogy, all the theory and the stuff that you need to know to be a teacher, because let's be honest, every aspiring opera singer ends up having to teach. But we did have to take one class about business. It was something called like the business of a studio. And because we were all going to end up having to be teachers one day, we needed to know how to set up and run our own little business, our studio. And to be honest, I kind of tuned that whole thing out because I didn't plan on being a teacher. I was going to be a performer, and I didn't care about the business. All I cared about was the performing. And I loved, my favorite part of it was taking on a role and becoming that character and digging in and doing the research and reading and rehearsing and then taking risks and becoming that person. I was never that person. She looks like she's playing Brunhilde from a Wagner opera. But my junior year at BYU, I auditioned for the main stage production of Marriage of Figaro. Quite a different opera than anything that Wagner wrote. Very comic and light, very complicated love triangle, actually several love triangles. But I was so excited when I found out I was cast not as a lead role, but as a nice supporting role, and I would have my own aria to sing. And as I started digging into what that role was all about, researching and reading, I realized, wait a minute, Barbarina, the person that I'm supposed to play, is a 12-year-old peasant girl. And at the time, I was an 8-month pregnant married woman. And I did not know how is that going to work. There's no way. I can't play that role. But I went back to my training, and I dug in, and I did some research, and I talked to my director, and we ended up writing some type of backstory that made it work. I had to make that role work for me. And so we came up with a story that Count Almaviva, who was married to the Countess, who had a crush on Susanna, this whole crazy thing. Maybe on the side, he had a little tryst with Barbarina to explain the bump. So not really BYU approved, that storyline there. But that's how we had to make it work. And then the aria that I was supposed to sing while crawling around on my hands and knees underneath the table looking for the little pin that I was supposed to deliver to Susanna from the Count, I couldn't very well crawl with this big belly, so we had to amend the staging there. But we made the role work. And I was able to sing my heart out and had this amazing experience, which still is one of the highlights of my career, singing with my new soon-to-be-born babe up there on stage with me. Little did I know that experience of having to craft a role that worked for me, I would be recalling those experiences today in this new awesome role that I have as founder of a company. And much like I found with that role of Barbarina, I've had to kind of make this role my own and write a backstory and research and take some risks to figure out how to make it work. And how did I land this role? You might be wondering. I sometimes wonder that same thing. How did I get this role? Well, I didn't have an audition like I did for Figaro or for any other shows I tried out for. I had an aha moment one day with this little guy. This is Declan. He's my youngest. He's 9 right now. But when he was 6, I had this little moment where this role just fell into my lap. And I'm going to tell you that story really quickly. So I have 7 children. And my days have been filled for the last 20 years of mothering. And he was 5, getting ready to go to 1st grade. And I was so excited because I was going to get all my days free. I literally had fantasized about this moment for so many years. And one of these nights, I went around to tuck the kids into bed, and I found him up in his room crying, which is not like Declan because he's the jolliest fellow on the planet. So I knew something had to be wrong, and I went up there and I rolled him over, and I'm like, buddy, what's wrong? And I noticed then that he had this little photo album that his preschool teacher had made him. She had taken photos throughout the year and of like their field trips and their activities and parties and printed them off and put them in a little dollar store photo album. And he was in bed, clutching that album to his chest. And he said to me, Mama, I don't ever want to grow up. And it was honestly the sweetest thing. Kind of funny that a 5-year-old would be feeling nostalgic already. But it was also heartbreaking to me. And I realized that one of these important jobs that I had as a mom, to document our stories and help my children hold on to their memories, I was failing at. Because I had been a diehard scrapbooker. I was way into that in the 90s. But somewhere along the road of having 7 kids and transitioning from print photography to digital photography, I had quit that long ago and hadn't even printed a single photo of my baby. So I knew that there was a job to be done here, a problem to be solved. And I had this light bulb that I'm not scrapbooking, I'm not even journaling. What am I doing? I'm sharing photos and little stories through social media, through Instagram, this really cool app that my little sister, one of which is standing back there, no, 2 of them that are back there, told me about. They're like, ooh, I'm the big older sister, I'm like the ancient one, the grandma of the family. They tell me about all the cool new stuff. So there's this cool new app called Instagram. And so I'd been using it for a couple of years to share photos and stories with friends and family. And I thought, if I could just print my Instagram, that's better than nothing. That's kind of the story of our life, at least for the last 4 or 5 years. And so, so I had the idea, but I didn't really know what to do with that. Because again, I'm not into business. I don't do that kind of stuff. But I knew someone who was. Where are you, babe? Okay, that guy. My husband, serial entrepreneur. I knew he knew what to do with this. So I marched downstairs that night and I told him, I know what you need to do. I've got the idea for you. And a little backstory on him. He actually had a little team in place, a little technical team that had been working really hard on an idea that he had. Because we have this shared passion for family memories and for family history. We know it's important. That's why it was so painful for me to realize that I hadn't been doing that job for Declan. I said, babe, take your team and do something else, because this other thing you're working on, no one cares about it. It was a cloud-based solution. It was beautiful software, but it required too much work, and it wasn't anything you could hold on to. And I realized that that holding on that I had seen Declan doing just moments before in his bed, that was an important part of it. So he knows a good idea when he saw one, and he did. He took that to his team, and within a couple weeks we had a prototype, and they're over there building it out, and I'm back home dreaming about becoming a yoga instructor or going back to get my master's, not interested at all in helping build out the business. But the more I saw them work, and I had opinions, like, ooh, are you sure you want to make the spines of those books green? I don't think I'd want them green. Or are you sure you want to organize the books that way? I think it should be done a different way. Well, he didn't want to hear from me because I wasn't in there putting in the hours. But I didn't know how I was going to put in the hours. He's my youngest of 7. I'm a full-time caregiver to 7 people. But then I remembered that Barbarina moment where I took a role that seemed impossible and crafted it to fit my situation. And somehow mustered up the courage and jumped in with both feet to make this dream that I had of making it possible for everyone to hold on to what matters a reality. And I'm so glad I did. My experience as a founder has been very different from maybe some of the experiences of the people that have come and spoken to you earlier, but I have learned a few things that I think are universal. And so today I want to share with you 3 facets of this amazing role of founder that I think could be applicable to anything that any of you might be thinking about starting. A business, a blog, anything. Hopefully you'll find something that applies. Okay, does anyone know who this is? Okay, 3 coupon cards, if anyone can tell me who this is. Any dancers in the audience? No, you guys are business people. Okay, this is Isadora Duncan, and she was a revolutionary in the world of dance. We call her the mother of modern because she had an idea that the norms of the day, and that was ballet, corsets, shoes, rigidity, choreography, that's not how she wanted to express herself, and she felt like there were other women in the world that probably felt restrained by this. And so she had this idea, this vision of a different world, and she shunned the corsets and the toe shoes and all of the technique and went back to this earthy, free-form, reminiscent of the Greeks style of dance. But, you know, at the turn of the century, this was not popular. Okay, a lot of people were not okay with this right here. But she had a vision, and she had conviction that this change needed to be made, and there were women that would want to express themselves this way, and people that would want to appreciate art like this. And as a founder of a business or of anything, you have got to have conviction, because there are going to be naysayers. Guaranteed, if you have a good idea, someone is going to say it's a terrible idea. I think if you talk to any founder, they've had this experience. And I know, especially as Nate was building out his idea, that cloud-based solution, he had a conviction that print was dead. And he was sticking to that, because even some of the focus groups we did, you know, we had customers say, oh, I really want this in a book. No, print is dead. That was his conviction. So I guess it's possible to be wrong about your convictions. But as a founder, you gotta hold fast to those. So he had that conviction. I had a conviction that no, people want to hold on to their memories. We're going to print them in a book. And so as a founder, you've got to have that conviction. You've got to be willing to persist as obstacles are thrown in your way, yet have the flexibility to grow and mold and listen and keep developing. And just like Isadora did, as the naysayers came and as tragedy and things came to her life, I've had that experience as I built my company. And any founder you talk to, I think, will agree that conviction, persistence, and flexibility are super important. Okay, I'm going to skip to the next slide. You guys know who this is, though, right? Okay, Walt Disney, one of the world's greatest storytellers. I grew up in Orlando, Florida, not far from Disney World, and I had a dream of being a performer. I wanted to be in the parades and on the stage. So one day when I was in high school, I actually skipped school and went to a casting call. I didn't tell any of my family because I was too afraid that if I didn't get cast, then I would have the embarrassment of saying they didn't want me. But in my heart, I really secretly wanted to be a face character like Mary Poppins or maybe even Cinderella. I don't know, that was kind of a stretch. But I went for it, and I went through the whole process, and at some point, someone said to me, okay, you know what we want you to do? We want you to show us how would you change a tire as Pluto. I have no idea. But little I know, I was being cast as Pluto. And so I had to be run through this whole gamut of scenarios where I had to change a tire as Pluto, bake cookies as Pluto, throw a party as Pluto. I got the job. And that experience of learning like how important storytelling is, that they would go through that much trouble to train all 50 of us that had to put that disgusting, sweaty, heavy, hot suit on in those hot, Orlando summers to go out there and shake hands and sign autographs. The story had to be so clear that we would never break. And that was ingrained into me, so that when I finally did get a face role and I was dancing in a parade and I did my leap off the float, somehow I twisted my ankle and I sprained my ankle in the middle of the parade. And I was wearing cowboy boots because it was this whole Western theme, and I could feel my ankle swell up in my boot. Oh, it was awful. But it had been ingrained into me the importance of the story and keeping that thread of the story. And so instead of showing any discomfort or pain, I just propped myself up on the float and kept waving and singing all the way to the end. And you know what? I wasn't the only person that did that. We were all 100% committed to the story. And as founders, that is your job. This story is everything. And you're going to tell that story over and over and over again. And it's going to help you in recruiting, in developing your relationship, and hopefully getting money from investors, and also in partnerships. We are so lucky. We've had some really amazing people come join our Chatbooks team. And one that completely changed my life, because when I first started coming in and taking responsibility at the company, I was doing all the marketing and PR, which basically consisted of me Googling, how do you get PR for a startup? How do you market an app? I had no idea, but you can learn a lot on Google. But I met this woman at StartFest, which is an awesome event that was sponsored by Beehive Startups, but is now, I think Silicon Slopes has wrapped it up into their big summit. An amazing event. If you guys are interested in entrepreneurship, you must attend. But anyway, I met Rachel there. She was telling her story about how she was an editor at Oprah Magazine and all the lessons that she learned and how to help get PR. And I wanted her on my team. But she had a startup of her own that she was trying to get off the ground. And she actually came to our office to talk to Nate and I about fundraising in Utah. And she told us her story, we answered her questions, and then we told her our story. And we sold it hard. And in the end, we were like, we want you to come join us. We'll buy your company, and you join our team, and we'll conquer the world. And she was like, what? I wasn't expecting that. Can I think about it for a minute? And oh, thank heavens for us. She went off for a couple of weeks. She thought about it. She came back. She's like, I'm all in. And she's been a huge part behind all of the success we've had in marketing, including that video you watched earlier. She's amazing. So storytellers. Are you all storytellers? Are you ready to sell your story over and over and over again? Because that's a big part of the job. Okay. Do you guys know what a muse is? Maybe like Greek, back in the Greeks, the muses that represented the arts, that came down to earth to inspire us mortal humans to greatness. Are you familiar with the show Xanadu? Anyone? Okay, well, if you've never seen it, now's your chance. It's actually showing at the Covey Theater right now, and I have a couple of tickets. But this is Olivia Newton-John, who played the role of Kira, who is in the muse in the movie version of Xanadu. Xanadu is a campy, wacky, fun musical set on roller skates, normal. But she was sent down from the gods to help a struggling artist named Sunny realize his potential. And much like a muse, a founder, that is your job, to inspire. Remember, you have that vision and you have that story, but to get people to rally around you and to build out your team and to make that vision a reality, you've got to inspire. And how do you do that? Through a set of values, working towards a mission while you're building your team. And a lot of my experience on this earth has been as a mother. And I found that there's a lot of things that I've learned as a mother that I use in my job as a founder. And one of them is helping instill values. Any parents out here? Okay. You understand my frustration sometimes about instilling these values. And there was a time where Nate and I, we were just swimming in small children that were like out of control. And we're like, we need to get a handle on this. What are we going to do? And we're like, let's come up with a creed, the Quigley Creed. And we're gonna drill into these kids what they need to be and who they should be becoming. And so we came up with a set of values called the Quigley Creed that then we forced our children to recite every Monday at family home evening. And we made hand motions, and we're like, if we do this and we hang them up on the wall, then they're gonna get it. Do you guys wanna see what the creed is? Okay, it's kind of evolved as we went from like lots of little kids to teenagers. We kind of elevated them a little bit, but it goes like this. We line them up, oldest to youngest, in front of the fireplace. Quigleys are respectful, responsible, considerate, and kind. Now, that doesn't guarantee that all the Quigleys are all those things all the time, but it's something that we talk about all the time, and we reinforce through the things that we say and the things that we do. As a founder, it's so important to figure out what are your values, and your values are going to be different for your company than they are for someone else's company, because those values are, that's who you are. And so as a company, Chatbooks, we got our leadership team together, and we looked at all the employees of our company, and we decided what are our favorite things about the best people in this company. And we filled this giant whiteboard with all of these words of things that we loved about all of our favorite people at Chatbooks. And then we methodically went through and picked out 5, because you don't want too many, because then they start to get diluted. But we picked 5 for each point on a star, and we decided that those are going to be our Chatbooks values. And our Chatbooks values are at the very tip of the star. I can't really do a star, but if you can imagine, the tip's right here. Our most important value is grown up. I deal with kids too many times in my off hours. I needed grown-ups at work. So that is the most important value, grown up. And then we need you to be able to ship. Okay, we're moving fast here. That's the nature of a startup. You need to be able to ship. But if you ship, that thing you ship has got to be amazing. You've got to be amazing. You've got to do amazing work. And then at the bottom, the base of our values is kind and optimistic. And so those are things we talk about at our company constantly, and we reinforce it in the things that we do and our one-on-ones with our employees. As a founder, that is so important, because while you do that, you're working towards this mission, and it's all wrapped up. At Chatbooks, our mission is to strengthen families. And we do that through our product, right? Making your memories accessible so you can hold on to them, so your kids can remember who you are and where you came from and what's important. But we also do that in the way we treat each other, because we are kind of like a family. But this is where I want to make a distinction. A company is not a family. Because in this part about team building, yes, you nurture your employees, you teach them, you encourage them, you give them opportunities. But one of the hardest parts about being a founder is that sometimes you have to build by subtracting. Sometimes you have to recognize that you don't really fit here. Those values, you're not embodying those values. And whereas with a child, you just forgive and you go over and over and over again, and there's no quitting, right? There's no cutting until they go to college, and then you can just be like, nope, the basement is not an option. But that's one of the hard parts, but it's so important. And Nate and I are realizing as our company is growing that more and more of our time is spent on dealing with humans and either developing them or having the courage and the kindness, honestly, to say, this isn't working. If it's not working for us, I know it's not working for you. And so that's a reality. Yeah, so I hope you keep that in mind. Okay, so being a founder is not easy, but it is so fun. It is so fun that I have a hard time limiting myself. I was just telling Paige, I try to spend only 20 hours a week on Chatbooks work because I still have all these people, right, that I'm in charge of. But it's so hard for me because I love it so much, and it's so rewarding that I have to discipline myself. You guys have been able to hear from so many amazing entrepreneurs in this series. What an amazing gift for you all. They all have different stories. They all have different strengths. I'm here just sharing my story, and my story is unique because of these people. That girl right there, she just left to go to Canada for her mission. She just finished 6 weeks in the MTC, and we got to talk to her this morning. Whew. I hope that if any of you in the audience here have a desire to start something, whether it's a business or something on a smaller scale, if you have that desire to create, that you understand that it's possible, it's doable, you can take that role and make it work for you. Last time I came to UVU to speak, I was on this little panel for women in business, and I'd really only been in business for a couple of months, and I'm like, why am I being asked to do this with Corinne Clark, who's this amazing female entrepreneur? And I was so overwhelmed, and Nate was like, oh, you got this, you got this. We need all different examples of entrepreneurs. You just need to go out there and just be you. And so that is my concluding message to you, that if you have a desire to start something, go for it. But do it your way and just be you. Thank you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I would love to invite my handsome, fearless co-founder to come down here. I wanted to say also, there's no way I could do it without an amazing co-founder, and actually our technical co-founder, he's amazing. Nate does all the financial stuff, Steve did all the technical stuff, I did the PR marketing. But there's so much to do as you're moving fast and growing that we've built out this incredible team, and there's no way I could be doing this without my team. So I had to say that.
Okay, we have microphones here for your questions, and we use the mic so we get it on camera so everybody can kind of hear what's going on. So raise your hand, we'll get to you real quick, and here we go.
What role does culture play in keeping Chatbooks as great as it is?
Well, that last slide, the Olivia Newton-John slide, I'm going to go back to that because it's a gorgeous picture. Okay, this represents culture, right? Because sometimes I think we hear culture and we think, I don't know, what do you guys think when you hear culture? Ping pong tables, barbecues, I don't know. It's not that, right? Cultures are those values that keep you pointed towards your North Star.
Yeah, I think we talk about it a couple of different ways, but one of the ways we talk about culture is just what does it feel like to work and live at Chatbooks? And a huge part of that are what are the people like that you spend your whole day with? And that's where I think, it comes back to Vanessa's thing about really believing in the values that you think are important for the kind of environment you want to have at Chatbooks, and then being willing to hire and let people go, for those reasons.
What has it been like doing a business together as a husband and wife?
Our whole marriage, because he's this serial entrepreneur, he's always thinking of business plans and always like, hey babe, we should do this together. Let's brainstorm business plans. What can we do together? No interest. I had no interest.
It's true that most of my businesses are really boring.
Well, kind of.
But this is the first one she's cared about.
He's used to being the boss of his world, and I'm the boss of my world, and I didn't know how that was going to work, right? Two bosses together. But we've been married long enough that we can pretty much weather any storm. We can work through any differences. And because this was something that we were super passionate about together, I decided to take that leap of faith. And honestly, I think it's one of the best things we've ever done for our marriage. Because I'm realizing now that this whole life he had before we were working together, I was clueless about. In fact, the other day, after we left a board meeting, I'm like, babe, was it so lonely all those years?
She was actually impressed with me.
I had no idea what you were doing.
It's never happened before. She was like, you did a really good job. Like, you're good at that.
We have a lot more to talk about. We get to take these business trips sometimes, and, it's fun.
No, it's been really, really fun. But I would say that you don't want to do this unless you already really like each other, because it's just one more thing to kind of bump into each other on. So it is that's the only word of warning. Like if you have a great marriage, you'll have a great business partnership, and if you don't, it's going to be a total nightmare. But I do think though, Vanessa talked about this idea for the books. That wasn't the first Vanessa was not the first person that had said to me or my technical co-founder, I would really like to have this in a book. But for whatever reason, we were being like really, whatever the other word was, persistent, I think. That's one of my special skills is I'm persistent. Or stubborn or, dumb or whatever. But when your wife comes downstairs after talking to your son and she grabs you, like she has an ability to get through that we've really needed. And you've, changed the company because you jumped in and because you have, we have the relationships we do. I'm a lot more prone to listen a lot more carefully.
What was your greatest setback, and what did you learn from it?
Well, I spared you all the details of that other cloud-based thing that he
She
was
mentioned
doing.
it in passing, but
We went years without a salary investing in that thing, which had the same ultimate goal, right? To safeguard, organize, and enjoy your memories. Those were hard years. In fact, we even picked up our family from Florida as soon as our oldest graduated from high school and moved to Utah, which I said I never would do. But we did it. We were desperate, right? For me, that was the hardest thing. And it doesn't really, like Chatbooks, we pivoted and Chatbooks grew out of all of that. And since we started printing books, like it's been pretty much everything's been.
Yeah. No, what's great, this is the classic thing you hear with other founders, is this is the overnight success that took 3 excruciating years, to get to that moment when Vanessa had the insight that she did. And we've now in the last 3 years sold millions of those little books. We've raised tens of millions of dollars of financing. We've got this amazing team. It continues to accelerate. It's incredibly fun and rewarding right now. But there were 3 really long wilderness years. So like what particular challenge was the hardest? Like the whole thing was really hard for a good 3 solid years.
But right now, I would say the biggest challenge for us is this team, building this team. We have lots to do, and we need to move fast. And finding the right talent that fits our culture, I would say right now, that's our biggest challenge.
Okay. What was that very first funding operation that you did? Because it's easy to raise money when you're already successful, but what happened between that 3 years of emptiness and where you are now?
Amazingly, we raised some money at the beginning of the wilderness period, in the middle of the wilderness period. That goes back to that storytelling thing.
He's a great storyteller, and he had some other businesses before that had success, and people that knew him and worked with him are like, anything you do, Nate, I'll back you. So
we were really lucky to have investors that believed in us during those really long, painful periods. So, well, as Vanessa said, most of the folks that invested in this company, this is our 3rd company really, were people that I'd known at the first or second company, or some that I worked with my first job out of college. So they were angel investors that I'd worked with previously. But the hardest fundraising of all time was what we called our seed extension. So Vanessa invested a bunch at the beginning. She was very good about that.
Very
and
generous.
she was a very patient investor. So she invested a bunch of our money, and then she was patiently allowing me to not make any money, which is another form of investment. But eventually that pool started to get a little dry, so we went to go out and raise money from our friends, these people I'd worked with in the past. And the first time we raised money, we had a little bit of history of like, boy, you've been doing this yourself for about a year, and it hasn't really worked yet, but okay, I guess maybe it'll start working now with our money. And it didn't, it didn't work at all with their money. So about a year later, we were kind of out of the money we'd raised from our friends. We had to go back again. That was when it really got inconvenient. All the facts were very inconvenient at that moment. So it was a lot of story about here's what we learned, here's what we're going to try next. And again, we're really lucky to have these patient investors that hung in there with us as we were sort of wandering in the wilderness.
So a lot of entrepreneurs raise capital, right, and don't bootstrap it up front. What was kind of your strategy when you began, and how has that shifted to where you are today? Has this become a lifestyle business where you guys just want to continue to ride this out? Do you want to sell it? What's the thought process there?
Yeah, the second you raise money from someone else, it's no longer a lifestyle business. So we've now raised over $20 million of equity capital and our $10 million of debt. So we're in it. And we have a big responsibility to make money for our investors. The nice thing about it is we're not in a hurry. We would love to run this business forever and build a really big, and Vanessa kind of every time I said, maybe forever is a little long. But this is the 3rd go-round. We sold the first company, we sold the second company. Would love to not sell this company until it's a really big company, which is why we've been confident to raise the capital that we have. We'd like to build a really big business and keep at it. But yeah, once you take $1 from someone else, it's not a lifestyle business, as you know.
And so my question was the video we showed before the class, the advertisement was pretty similar to the Squatty Potty and the Aura Brush. Did you guys go to the
same team,
same company?
The Harmon Brothers.
Okay, cool. Yeah. That's what I was wondering.
And if you're starting a consumer business, there's one word of advice: launch a viral video. Just try to get 80 million views. It'll work. It helps a lot. But the funny thing about that, again, back to the sort of 3 years of pain and then this overnight success, that was probably video number 20 something. I mean, we'd done a lot of videos with different videographers, with different writers. And it's just like, you know, can you stay in the game long enough to have to trip into some good luck?
Okay, so right here, the question I'm blending in. So I asked Rachel about, when I met her at Silicon Slopes really briefly, about that video and how that came to be in the Harmon Brothers process and how they did all that. That's impressive, and you probably got 20 shares out of me, just me alone. So it's an awesome video. But can you talk to me about the success of the video and what comes after that, like the attention it garners you and what kind of stress or problems come out of that afterwards and how you dealt with it?
Well, I have to say, it was really nice to watch our curve of books sold going like this and then take this really nice spike when that video came out. But we're continuing to repurpose that and retarget with that. We've got a longer term campaign with Harmon Brothers and using video content to drive new customers.
Yeah, it's true. You don't want, if you're starting some business, you don't want that viral video until you're ready to really capitalize on it. You know, we had already been through a bunch of capacity problems, and we'd sort of solved like 3 or 4 different, we can only print this many books a day, and at that point we were ready to print as many as we could sell. So it would have been terrible to have that kind of a successful breakout video. We had 10 million views in the first 3 days without putting any ad spend behind it. And we did get this real, you know, great immediate spike. And if we had been sort of blocked at selling this many books a day when we had this many sold, it would have been a real shame. So it was good that we had been at it for a while before we had that success. And we've had to since, you know, continue to really invest heavily in pushing the video. And this is the dirty secret of viral videos. You don't get to 100 million views unless you're like a skateboarding cat or whatever, without a few ad dollars. Like, we've put a lot of ad money behind that video now. So, you know, it's not 85 million organic, you know, amazing, perfect free views with a zillion free dollars. We've spent a lot of money to push that video.
But it's paying off. It's been a gamble, but it's paid off.
Yeah, I was wondering, what was your target market, and did that change as you went on? And did you find that here in Utah, you know, just the culture here, is that a lot of people buying from here, or was it outside of Utah?
Well, I'm a Florida girl, and we were living in Florida for 7 years before we moved here, and I really didn't have a desire to leave Florida. But because we knew that this was a business that we were going to be, you know, we're going to be targeting families, and there are a lot of families in Utah, you know, companies whose the whole, you know, they're all here to work for about family history. I can't talk. We felt like coming to Utah was really important for that. Also, the mommy blogger thing kind of happened here in Utah, and we knew that that was going to play a part in our marketing. So moving to Utah was the first big hard thing I think that we did.
We didn't have a relocation package from this company with $0 of revenue and, you know, zero progress.
I packed everything by myself.
Vanessa packed the entire house while I was fiddling around futilely, like with this thing that no one cared about. And we just drove across the country and all of a sudden plopped down Utah. I drove down to the Riverwoods like the 3rd day we were here and just called all the phone numbers on the buildings like outside and found this little corner of an office to go pop my desk and laptop in, and we just all of a sudden were now in Utah.
But I knew that this was a product. I was a mom. I knew it was something I wanted, and I knew it was going to appeal to moms. And those moms who had been on Instagram, those millennial moms, that's our core demographic. So that's really who we market to. But it's interesting when I do these user interviews, that's one of my jobs as Chatbooker in Chief. Did I tell you that's my title? See, making the role my own. I just made up my own title. So as Chatbooker in Chief, I do a lot of user interviews and get to hear from our customers and then the voice of the customer as we develop product. But a surprise, they are the range to like people without kids, people that just have pets. I just did an interview with someone yesterday who's a gamer, and she makes chapbooks of stills of her video game things. So I think we appeal to a wide range.
I don't think we're going to build like a dedicated. But 95% of our customers are women, and 82% are moms. So that is definitely where we focus our marketing. And any of you guys that want to buy a book, like, great, but we're not going to really market to you probably for a while. So just come on in. Okay, did someone have a question over here? Oh.
Question about hiring, and the answer to this may come from a prior business, but how do you hire the right people when you're just starting up and you don't have all the attractive things that a lot of I mean, you're competing for talent. How do you hire the right person to fit your culture when you've
Yeah. Well, at the very beginning, again, it's just back to the storyteller. The facts are really getting in the way. Like there's just nothing useful that you can actually pick up and show someone. So it is a lot about story and vision. In our case, our technical co-founder, really good friend, Steve Bentz, was with me at the second company. He was my favorite engineer at the second business that had 500 people in it. So I kind of was able to cherry pick. Like, I love working with Steve, and he's a great full-stack developer with this hacker mentality, and just somehow convinced Steve to come join us and try to build this thing. And then he also had, I knew enough about him to know he has a little grit. Like, he hung in there through all those lean years with me as we revved the product, 1,000 times before Vanessa had her insight. So I think it is who you've been working with and who you really trust and know in the very early days.
But he also wasn't afraid to put an ad on Craigslist and hire people that way too. And
it's also like making it up, like literally making it up.
but one of those is still with us.
Yeah,
He's
the
all-
guy we hired from Craigslist is our lead back-end developer, and he's incredible. It was a Craigslist ad. So, and then we've also hired lots of people who haven't stayed. That it wasn't great for them, it wasn't great for us. And so I think the hardest part about hiring is being willing to admit that you made the wrong hire, or that the company's evolved in a way that the hire no longer fits. And Vanessa, mentioned that, and it's really, really, really hard. But if I think you're a founder and you care most about the mission and what the company's trying to do, you have to face that fact.
Yeah, we have one last question right here.
I was just going to ask, how large is your company now, and what is the most difficult time that you've had with having to let somebody go and using candor to help, move that forward?
Radical candor is our favorite new word.
We just ordered a copy of
It's
that
the-
book for
she's
everyone
great,
in our
isn't she?
company.
Yeah, no,
because
it's so good.
what are we at now? We're like 100 and
We're 110 total, and then full-time equivalent. We have about 45 or so full-time people, and then another 70 or 80, or I guess it's 70, that are part-time and mostly work from home from around the country.
we call them our mom force because they're mostly stay-at-home moms, and they are the backbone of our amazing customer service. If any of you have used our customer service, they're awesome.
The hardest thing, I do think that radical candor framework is incredibly helpful, because the first axis is, do I care personally about this person, and do they know it? And I think if they do know that you care personally about them and their family, you can have like really direct, helpful conversations earlier. And we are really working hard to get better at this as our company continues to grow. The other thing I think is really important is to be really generous in the severance packages that we offer if we are parting ways. So we offer a 3-month severance package. If it's not working out, here's 3 months of pay, and we really want you to find a better situation for you and for your family. And I think that that's a lot of money. A lot of companies don't do that. But if you think about it as sort of a tax on your hiring practices and like how good you are at recruiting, and you just sort of factor that into, we're going to get it wrong sometimes, but let's get it wrong less. And then you just realize, I owe this person a kind off-ramp to help them get to the next place they need to be. Then I think it also emboldens our team to sort of do the right thing faster.
And maybe if they're not happy, proactively ask for the severance so that they can move on. So.
Fantastic. I just want to say, before we clap, really, this is an amazing story. There are so many aspects that they did so well. You don't see too many husband and wife teams that really not only can survive the marriage, but can survive pulling a business together. That is phenomenal. That just means you're able to find what you're really good at and work well together. It's just amazing. But what I really love is they took a fundamental problem, and you nailed it on the target market. Women really feel a little bit of guilt that they're not doing some of these things for their kids. It seems like, doesn't it? And they found a solution to the problem, and you work so hard to make it such a simple solution it's a problem we all have. They found a great way to make it simple, and your scalability is just phenomenal that you've been able to do it. And I really love the story about sticking with your passion, because in the business world, it's so easy to have other people that seem to have influence and power steer you in a wrong direction. And I just think it's so admirable that you stuck with it and you followed your passion through to the end. So let's hear it for these guys. Fantastic.
Thank you.